welcome back to our Solicitor Series podcast. Again, I'm joined by the lovely Darren, my colleague and another LPC student at ULaw, and we're also joined by Amanda Crutchley today.
Did you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Amanda Crutchley. I am the Pro-Bono coordinator at Bristol and Exeter, so I have the pleasure of knowing Darren and Chloe for their years here as undergraduates and then postgrad with Chloe, and then also I'm the employability group manager. So with kind of an overview on what's happening within employability, pro bono and careers at the minute at the university.
So yeah, guys, we're going to be talking all things vacation schemes. Let's jump in.
Yeah, let's go for it. So I think what Chloe and I will do, which I think will be hopefully really useful for all the listeners, is sort of discuss our personal experience. We both did 2 vacation schemes.
Yeah.
We both had different experiences on both of them. And so hopefully it will help you guys when you're listening to hear about what we've got up to. So I did 2 vacation schemes, one with Clyde & Co., which was 2 weeks long in the summer. And then I did a week-long vacation scheme with the US-based law firm Reed Smith. Do you want to mention which ones you did, Chloe?
Yeah, so I did a 2-week-long vacation scheme with Burgess Salmon, which is a regional firm in the southwest, and I did a week-long vacation scheme with Mitchell Moores, which is where I'm now future trainee. I think one of the first things we should cover off is sort of what is a vacation scheme, because it's a bit of an alien term for students. So I don't know if you had a definition for that, Amanda, and how you explain it to students.
Effectively it's work experience, isn't it? It's that opportunity for firms to see you in situ within the firm, to see whether how you work, your style of working, and actually, again, we've been talking in previous podcasts about your soft skills. How you work within a team. What strengths would you bring to the team? Do you bring an energy, a different dynamic to the team? Are you proactive? Do you, for example, are you prepared to go out on this? Maybe they might have a social event on an evening, and be under no illusion they're expecting that you're going to go to that and contribute. So they're looking at how you fit as a personality within the firm, but actually also how you work. Your commitment, your insight, your efficiency.
Yeah, and I think me and Darren had some quite different experiences, which we'll talk through. But I think a really important thing to note is when me and Darren are talking about our experiences, and we did vacation schemes to secure training contracts, we are working on the old route. So there's now the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the SRA, have created a new route to qualify as a solicitor. So because of the times that me and Darren went to university, we did a vacation scheme training contract. But some of you guys who are listening might be doing your undergraduates now. So you might be going on to do an SQE, Solicitors Qualifying Exams, rather than the LPC, which is what me and Darren did, because that's being phased out. And then you'll go on to do something called Qualifying Work Experience, rather than the training contract, which we're going to touch on a little bit later. I know Amanda's got some tips about that. But I just wanted to flag that, because when we're talking about our experiences, they might not be directly applicable to what you guys are doing now, but there's a lot of transferable skills. So firms still do run vacation schemes, don't they?
And they will be. There's a lot of relevance. So yes, throughout here, when you're talking about training contracts, it is effectively the same thing. I mean, we talked earlier, and I said it was called the Emperor's New Clothes. In some ways it is. There's slight changes in it, which we'll come on to. But it is applicable to both.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Darren, did you want to get stuck in with sort of your experiences?
Should I jump in? So my first vacation scheme was 2 weeks, as I said, with Clyde & Co. Both of ours were virtual.
Yes.
So we are speaking from, unfortunately, a coronavirus pandemic perspective. I did manage to get a day in the office, which I'll touch on, but essentially it's just sort of talking you through what I did, which was basically be a trainee solicitor for 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
That's essentially what you're doing. Obviously, you're not expected to be working at the level of a trainee solicitor, but I was allocated a supervisor as well as a trainee buddy. So that's a current trainee solicitor. So the trainee buddy's there for you. And I know a lot of firms do a similar thing, but they're just if you have any general questions about what life is like at the firm, or you're struggling with something on the vacation scheme. And then you're allocated your supervisor, who will sort of monitor your work, provide you work, keep you busy. I was sat in just one department, so I was put in real estate. for 2 weeks at Clyde & Co. Chloe had a slightly different experience with her firms, which you'll touch on, but it was really nice to spend 2 weeks on various different tasks. I was looking at drafting like summaries of leases, which were getting sent off to clients. And it was really nice because I wasn't just getting involved in sort of random tasks. These were actually all work for the client. And firms are generally keen to get you involved as much as they can. Obviously, they have slight restraints. I did have a few other drafting tasks and legal research tasks, but generally they want to get you involved. And it is a really nice experience. And I think what you find once you're on the vacation scheme, you do sort of relax a little bit. The stresses of the interview in the assessment centre are sort of in the past slightly. You are always being assessed, but you can sort of find your way a little bit and really sort of settle in and hopefully, fingers crossed, enjoy the legal work that you're being assigned.
And I think the students that go on vacation schemes are absolutely kind of euphoric at the end of it. It's a great energy. You're learning. You've worked hard for this moment. Effectively, you're trying, dipping your toe in the water at what it's going to be like in your future career.
Yeah. So at Clyde & Co, we were given sort of a booklet at the start, which had what we were doing each day on it. So obviously, generally, you'll be with your supervisor doing work, but we had sort of team calls, a call with the environmental working group or various other groups that the firm has, just to keep us all together as a cohort and provide a nice bit of structure to our day. So that was really nice, and it kept us moving. And we had, even though it was virtual, we still had socials popped into the calendar. So we had a painting workshop and a cocktail making class, and all these kits were sent through. So it is a really nice atmosphere, and you get to know your vacation scheme cohort. And then fingers crossed, if you do secure the training contract, you've already made friends.
Yeah.
And it is, like Amanda said, it's a really nice atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's a really great achievement at the end of it as well.
It's also a bit of a sales pitch for the firm. I mean, a lot of people that go on vacation schemes have other vacation schemes.
Oh, well, yeah, I did.
Well.
I had another one lined up.
So it is a bit of sales pitch. So it's a two-way, like we've talked before, it's a two-way process that's happening here on the vacation scheme. They want you to like them.
Yeah, 100%. And then my second vacation scheme after Clyde & Co was just a week. So, I mean, it's only 5 days, so it's really speedy with Reed Smith. And again, I managed to get a day in their London office, of which the views are quite spectacular. But it ran very similarly to the Clyde & Co vacation scheme. I was actively working on some really brilliant legal work, logging on at 9 and communicating with all the teams.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk through your experience? And then
I just wanted to touch on, I know like with this solicitor series, you've been talking about a timeline and like where we are on this timeline right now. So we've done our applications, which we've submitted by sort of, January, December. We've then done our video interviews in our assessment centres in sort of the spring of that year in our second year of uni. And now we're sort of in the summer between second and third year. But as we've said before, it doesn't have to be that. You do this when you're ready. This is when me and Darren did it. But if you're a career changer, if you've got other circumstances going on in your life, you can do these vacation schemes whenever. And I know we mentioned before, you can also apply directly just for training contracts or qualifying work experience at firms as well. So it's whatever fits you. But yeah, jumping into sort of what my vacation schemes were like Darren said, I also did a 2-week and a 1-week vacation scheme. The slight different thing with my 2-week vacation scheme is instead of sitting in one department, I sat in 4 across the 2 weeks. So we did half a week in each. So I sat in banking, tax, trust and succession, where we focused on wills and drafting will for a client. I did a bit of real estate work, a bit of leasehold work, and also sat in corporate seats. So doing a bit of a company search on Company House website and things. So that was really nice, being able to get sort of a view of all different types of sectors of work, but you couldn't really get properly stuck in like Darren did. So it's important to note that different firms will structure their vacation schemes differently. And I found that. So when I went on to my second vacation scheme, which again was only a week, it was very accelerated, like Darren said, but the majority of it was like an elongated assessment centre, really. We had a lot of those assessment centre tasks, which we spoke about in the previous episode. So go give that a listen if you haven't yet. Weaved into the week, and we only had a couple of days of actually doing some work where I was sat in transactional real estate. So it really, there's not sort of one size fits all. It's very much sort of what the firm wants, and sometimes it'll be different. But yeah, you'll definitely also get a bit of social events and some social time as well. But it's just a good fun time, really, isn't it?
It's a good fun time. I think one thing I remember from my back scheme, and students find is clear your week. That would be one of my tips is don't organise to go to the cinema with friends on an evening. Don't line up, clear your week, because you will be exhausted by it. And there's also, you need to have those times in the evening available for when they say, oh, the team are entertaining a client tonight at X, would you like to come along? And the expectation is that you will. So I would say certainly to students, clear the decks. One question we do get asked quite a lot, it happens, vacation schemes can tend to fall on the same date at different firms. So lots of students have clashes to say, I've been offered 2 vacation schemes and they're falling in the same week. What do I do? I would just say, firms are aware that you will have, some students will have more than one offer of vacation scheme. Be upfront with them. Just say, I've been offered this, I've accepted it. Can I move it?
Yeah. Because sometimes they do run a couple, don't they?
Absolutely.
2 different sets of weeks, so you can always
absolutely.
get them switched around.
Yeah.
Another one of my sort of top tips, and one thing which I know that myself and Darren did, and I would really recommend for students, is when you're sort of set up, and you'll probably be set up on like Teams or a very similar platform, you'll have a directory, or you might be given a list by the firm of different trainees or different solicitors and what departments they sit in. If there's an area that you're really interested in that you haven't had a chance to sit in on your vacation scheme, reach out via email to someone working in that department and try and set up a 15-minute call. As you said before, email them in a really professional manner, ask if they've got any time, but they're generally really willing to give their time because they're excited that you're excited to work with them. So I would just try and talk to as many people as you can. And then when you come to the final interview, you can talk about all this. You went above and beyond all the extra things you did. I think that really reflects well.
I think, Chloe, what you said there is kind of leads on to another point as well about do your research before you go to those firms. Learn who the partners are in those departments. Learn who their clients are as well. Kind of get an ethos for where that firm is headed strategically. I always find firms' websites are absolute gold for little nuggets. What are they giving talks on at the minute? They run these information events, firms, for a reason. They're there to attract clients. So have a look, who are the departments that are growing? What are the kind of talks they're doing? What departments are growing and moving? It's useful to do your research before on who you're going to work with.
Yeah, and I think a point Chloe touched on, I think it was in a previous episode, but the connections you're making now may well last many years into the future. So
even if you don't work there.
Yeah, absolutely. So on my vacation scheme, I reached out to one of the partners in the US because she was responsible for opening up 4 new offices.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I'd love to hear a bit more about that. So fortunately, we negotiated time zones and had a little call. But that was 2 years ago now. I can't believe it. But we still keep in contact now.
Great.
And we've always said, when she's in London for a partners meeting, we'll go for a coffee.
Yeah.
So the connections you make on a vacation scheme will last.
And the end of the vacation scheme doesn't have to mean the end of all communication. Please do follow-ups with those firms. If anyone has spent time mentoring you during a vacation scheme week, do send them an email of thanks. It would be appreciated by them.
Yeah, that's definitely another tip. I think any time on my vacation scheme we had a talk from someone or a group talk, I just find their name in the directory and just send a really quick, hi, I'm Darren, thank you so much for your time. Kind regards. Just a quick thank you email.
Just really appreciated the insight you gave.
Because if the other 30 participants on your VAC scheme don't do that,
absolutely,
you've sort of helped yourself stand out a little bit. It's just manners. It doesn't cost anything, does it?
Yeah, and I think they sort of source feedback, don't they, from everyone you've interacted with. So it's just really important to always maintain kind of the professional.
And again, we spoke about this for assessment centres, but very similar to what you say there, Chloe. Again, it's exhausting because again, the minute you drive, if you're driving into their car park or you're speaking to the receptionist, you're on show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody will feedback. They will say to the receptionist on a morning, how were they? Did they greet you? How were they polite? Would they?
Yeah. So I think now we've kind of spoken about what we kind of experienced and what to expect. Have we got any tips on how students, if they get the offer of a vacation scheme, how they can prepare? Because I think it's quite important to, as we've said all the way along, you're selling yourself. It's important to have that confidence because firms, they aren't looking for perfection, just a bit of potential really, aren't they? Because they appreciate that you're students. Some people aren't even law students. Some, career changers or people from non-law degrees.
I mean, the first tip I would say is speak to your careers department, speak to your careers manager who've got a lot of experience on vacation schemes at the firms that you are going to. They'll have the intelligence, they'll have the insight, they'll know different people, how they run them, and will also hopefully, we love at the University of Law because we get to know you all, and so. We know also your strengths that we kind of, we'll kind of encourage you to shine in and to, play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what else to touch on in terms of preparation. I guess if often firms will send you, like I had at my 2-week booklet beforehand, of everything that's going on or some sort of structure. Have a look at that. Be ready for, what talks are you interested in. I remember Clyde & Co, they said, we're doing talks with all the firms' sort of inclusion networks, but you don't have to attend them if you don't want to. So work out which ones you want to attend. Have sort of some questions ready.
Have some questions.
Yeah,
I think some questions useful. Are really good. Like we were talking about just before. Research who the department are, who's working there. Have they been working on an interesting case? If they see that you've kind of been researching the department, that shows initiative.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, when you come to the end of your vacation scheme, so sort of tying it up, you do tend to have your big interview. So on the last day, they will give you your training contract or QWE interview to see whether they're going to retain you for your 2 years of experience. So it's kind of all building up to that, isn't it? So one thing which I did, which I found really helped, is throughout the vacation scheme, I had a notepad beside me and I took notes of who I spoke to, what talks we had, who spoke in them, so that then when I came to the TC interview, training contract interview, I was able to weave that into my answers and what I've learned and reflecting on it.
Because what you think you might remember on day one.
2 weeks later, it's
you're getting a lot of experience, won't you, in those 2 weeks? You're going to be so busy that actually you probably could forget once. Day one.
So I think that's one of my top
great
tips
idea.
for that.
Yeah, because the training contract interview will be, or QW interview, will be fairly heavily focused on sort of what you have learned in the vacation scheme, how you developed. And so you want to be able to give examples of, I had a call with such and such and I learned this from this talk. It was really great to find out more because I'm interested in this. And so keeping a little sort of diary or notebook and taking notes throughout the whole scheme.
Like you said, spend an evening kind of reflecting on what you did that day, what you learned.
Summarising it all up. I guess that could be a preparation point. Perhaps you could create yourself a little planner of, an A4 page for each day of, the date, all the speakers, what you've learned, and then a little box of key points to reflect on and fill that out every day, rather than just a little plain notebook. Both work, but that could be a good idea.
That's great. Kind of rewind it back further in relation to preparation. How did you find out the timeline for applications? And one thing we find is sometimes that students think, vacation scheme deadline is Monday, but also all my workshops need to be prepared for. So we try and kind of encourage students to really research the firms you're interested in well ahead of vacation scheme deadlines. What resources did you use? Did you use kind of Chamber Student? How did you find out about vacation deadlines?
I think we've touched quite a lot on it in the Researching Law Firms episode, but that was mainly for applications rather than actual vacation schemes dates. So that's actually a really useful point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's using all of those resources you mentioned, the Legal Cheek, Chamber Student, Legal 500, lawcareers.net, but students do have to use their own initiative. It's not just going to land into their lap, is it? You've got to go out and equally booking an appointment with your careers manager. They're going to be on top of the dates, aren't they? And they can help you with that as well if it's something you're not sure about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, as well as we mentioned in the earlier episode, looking at all the application deadlines and all the different steps. Have a look at when the firm are actually offering the vacation schemes.
Absolutely.
Because I purposely always applied for the summer ones because I knew thankfully I'd have that break throughout the summer, but firms do offer spring and winter ones. And that's when you're going to have to sort of maybe juggle it around your studies and work out when you're going to catch up.
And, to avoid that clash we talked about earlier, if you really are interested in two different firms and you can spread out the season that you're applying for, you're not going to risk having that clash where you think, which one do I choose?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you wanted to add in? Any other final tips or words of wisdom for our listeners?
Do you wanted me just to quickly mention QWE?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Should we touch on that?
Because I think some students listening to this will be under the SQE route. So you guys have done the LPC and then you do the standard industry training period, which is known as the training contract. QWE is very similar, really, in relation to the idea of it, the concept that you do 2 years of work experience, having exposure, they say exposure to solicitor competencies. The difference is you can gain it at 4 different places. So it's not a training contract at one place, it's work experience at up to 4 different places. The other difference is that you have to be very proactive. So the students have to be very proactive at monitoring, recording the time they spend with it. But one tip I would say to the students to think about is QWE has kind of got the carrot of you can knock off hours at various places, but still remember it is your training period for your career. And you too, you will find this, that your training contract is that it's training, so that you can be an effective and competent solicitor. So I'd really encourage the students, when they're thinking about QWE, speak to your careers team to see, absolutely, how valuable is this qualified work experience I am being offered. Because with training contracts, you apply and you do the training contract at the firm you will be hopefully staying with and retained at. That might not necessarily be the case with qualified work experience. You might be offered some citizens advice or a law centre. Talk to your careers manager about the value of that, because it is still training. And if you're going to be a personal injury lawyer, a commercial lawyer, you've got to think about how valuable for me will be 3 months of qualified work experience within a law centre setting, for example.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying that, because some students are going to be doing that route rather than the route me and Darren did. So I think that wraps everything up on vacation schemes. So thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining, Amanda.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.